we need to establish equal laws for women and men. As a woman, it's not empower me. It says that I am weak and I need someone to support me. I didn't use that advantage in my divorce.
You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today, broadcasting from Jerusalem. As the election is getting closer, ladies and gentlemen, and only getting more exciting in an election full of sex, drugs, and not too much rock and roll. We're just waiting for the rock and roll. But we're going to have it in only another 3 weeks. It feels like a million years away, but it's only 3 weeks away, and in that time, of course, anything can happen. And when I say anything can happen, I want to apologize, because when I started doing this Meet the Candidate series, and I started with a candidate from Yesh Atid, I immediately got 10 people who support the Zehut party telling me, you have to interview somebody from the Zehut party. And I said, Zehut, the party of Moshe Feiglin, that's not crossing the electoral threshold. If you cross the electoral threshold, I'll think about it. And now that Yesh Atid party has been swallowed up by another, and the candidate who I interviewed on the first show is 40th on the list and is not looking like she's going to be a Knesset member. But Zehut right now, about 10 polls in a row have shown that they will safely cross that 3.25% needed to get in, about 140,000 votes. And that means the first 4 candidates on the list are going to be getting in. And so I decided I will interview a candidate on my Meet the Candidate series from the Zehut party. And now Moshe Feiglin was already interviewed on the Land of Israel Network by Josh Haston. And anyway, this show is about introducing you to new people. Moshe Feiglin's been around a very long time. And so now there could be any number of candidates that I could have interviewed. After all, there are about 10 candidates who have American citizenship on the Zehut list. But no, I decided the most interesting candidate out of the 120 names that they put in, yes, they did put in 120 candidates, is number 4 on the list. Her name is Ronit Dror. She is not a native English speaker. Her English is not as good as other people on the list, but she's fascinating. Ronit, thank you for coming here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network.
Thank you, Gil, for this introduction.
So tell the world about who you are, because the polls, including the poll that was aired last night, say that you will be a Knesset member on April 9th.
Yes, I hope so. Maybe I think that it will be the way we see what happens around us. So about me, I'm a social worker. I have a PhD in social worker. I investigate, my research is dealing with in domestic violence, conflict between couples, escalation of these conflicts, and I know a lot about the problem of, let's say, that men and women are dealing with in our daily life, and how it reflects and affects the policy in this field. And from that area I came when I understand to the politics, because I understand that we are as a society are very empathetic for women. That
very empathetic to women.
Yes, very empathetic to women. We are pro-women, and when they are suffer from violence, where they are abused, and it's very important. And our problem begins when the men are suffering.
The suffering of the men isn't helped so much by the system here in Israel.
No. Actually, it's all over the Western world, but in Israel, it's worse because we didn't progress with these issues, and we don't have any institution or NPOs or organization that can help these men, especially when they are getting divorced. They can suffer from a lot of, things, very bad things like false complaints, accusation from the police, from the woman, and all the system, the law system, the welfare, our colleagues, social workers, the justice system are usually take the side of the woman and are like against the men. And this is a very, very big problem in Israel.
So you started an organization to try to fix that?
Yes, we established an organization 4 years ago, social workers, that calls by your side, Letzidchem in Hebrew, and we saw that we helped people, men and children, but we saw that the government, the welfare office, didn't help us to help men, so that these men and the husbands and fathers in this divorce high conflict are, we leave them alone to fight against all the system and, of course, against the wife.
That's very, very not easy for men who are going through divorces and don't have the support system that women have through all the organizations that there are that are very well funded that help women going through divorce and women in general.
Exactly, and it's very good. I want that we will have an organization for women, and to help women. And it's in this area, Israel. We are a very empathetic society for a woman, but not for a man. Yes.
Okay, so why are you entering politics? How can you help men who are suffering by entering politics?
Okay, because I saw that when I'm doing this job, of course voluntarily, for 7 years, 8 years, and I saw that outside the Knesset, I can't move anything. We can't move anything. We can do a change in the conversation, in the public conversation. People in Israel know that men are suffer also in the media, because I'm interviewed everywhere I can, and when they ask me to come and to talk about this. But in the end, we don't see any change in the policy. We don't see any budget that are going for these men, for this suffering, and we don't take care about them. And I'm talking about thousands of men each year, more than that about their children, because when the father gets a restraining order, it means that he's not going to see his children, and after that they can be alienated from their children for weeks and months, and maybe they can the welfare system will give him to see his children in a contact center, and it's so bad for these children.
That looks like a jail. The meetings between the father and the kids.
Yes, because it's
supervised.
Under supervision. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, and I think that all these things, not just this, we need to talk also about the campaign against men, that you can get, a false accusation because you are a man, and in Israel, your name will be published immediately before someone will investigate and before someone will say that you are really blamed about something, sexual harassment, for example. And these things are so bad. These campaigns are raising the war between genders. Actually, in the end, it goes around against women, Employees don't want to take women to jobs. Men in Israel, young men don't want to get married. Also, we have from this divorce cases, a lot of post-traumatic fathers and men that, it affects the whole society in the end.
Absolutely. So why the Zehut party? I read in an interview that you gave the Makori Show newspaper over the weekend that in the past you voted for the Labor Party. Zehut is led by a man who for decades has been called a right-wing extremist. Did you ever think you'd vote for, let alone run in a party led by a right-wing extremist?
No, it's quite a surprise for me too. But when it started when one of these fathers in this conflict, he arranged an appointment between me and Moshe Feiglin. When I heard Moshe Feiglin about the party, about the things that he wants to promote in Israel, and I mean the liberal one, in the economic, in the education, about the legalization of the medical cannabis. All these good things, I understand that I don't see the peace around us, in the next years. So there are, for me, a big problem, internal problem in Israel that we need to fix now. I know that the platform of the Zehut party is very good to these issues in Israel. So for me, it was very easy to understand that there is a good thing here in the Zehut party, but it took me like 1 year almost to say, yes, I want to enter the politics, but it wasn't because Zehut, it was because of me to decide to do such a change in my life. And this was the thing that I thought about it more.
And you've already been elected. You went through an open primary in which there were thousands of people who registered to vote and then voted. There were dozens of candidates, and you won the second slot in the primary after Moshe Feiglin and Chaim Amsalem that received the second slot, a former Knesset member, both of them. Right after Gilad Alper, a renowned economist. You are the top woman and the fourth candidate on the list. That's very impressive.
Yes, it's very impressive, but for me, it wasn't a shock because, the people that vote for me, they are a lot of divorced men and their families. Also, sometimes their partners, there are a few of them, I don't know how much, got married again. They have mothers and they have sisters. And it's not that just a man voted for me. A lot of women that understand my fight and what I'm doing here voted for me. And also a lot of young men that understand what I'm saying about aggressive campaigns against men, and they understand that if they won't change it now, they will be in problem maybe when they will, I don't know, get married, and maybe they will get divorced because, nothing is sure today about marriage all over. It's not just in Israel. So
sad but true.
Sad but true, and we need to establish equal laws for women and men. I don't know if you know, in Israel, the law says, for example, that the children are going with their mother if there is a conflict about the children in the divorce. They are going till the age 6 with the mothers. And for me, it's a very, very old law. It's not fair, let's say. It's not justice, because I think that fathers have to have the rights exactly like mothers when it depends on their children. In this case, in Israel. Unfortunately, it's not fair. It's not justice. Also, the alimony or the child support.
Before you move on to the alimony, just to clarify for the listeners, what Ronit is talking about is called in English the tender years clause, chizkat gil harach in Hebrew, and because it says that any child under 6 will automatically go to the mother, unless there's agreement between the couple. Anyone getting a divorce who has one child under 6, that mother will automatically get all the kids. So there could be 6 kids, but because they're not going to split the children apart, and they're not going to then redo the deal after the child turns 6. There's right now an encouragement of mothers to get a divorce before their child turns 5 or is approaching 6, because then she knows she'll automatically win custody of all of the children. And this encourages divorce, and it encourages inequality and bias, and this has been worked on by the outgoing Knesset to try to be fixed, to try to be changed, that it won't be automatic, and certainly not all the way up to age 6. There was a bill that passed in a first reading, but it is not advanced enough to pass into law, in part because of some of the Knesset members who prevented that from happening. Am I right?
Exactly, Gil. Yes. You explain it very well.
And now you can move on to the alimony, which is certainly something that divorced men suffer from, even if they have the custody of their children half the time. Yeah. They still end up paying an exorbitant amount of money to their ex-wives just because they happen to be male.
Exactly. We have Hebrew law, it calls in Hebrew, Adin Ivri, that men, the fathers, have to support the child, and it doesn't matter if they have a shared custody or she maybe earn more than him or the same salary. He still will need to pay her money. So I don't know why, because I don't understand why it has to be.
Because she's a woman and he's a man, and that's the way it was back in the days of the Bible.
But for me, as a woman, it's not empower me. It says that I am weak and I need someone to support me. I didn't use that, advantage in my divorce, and I don't think that women need to do it.
Now, you lived until recently in Karmiel, in the north, in the periphery.
Exactly.
And there aren't a lot of representatives of the periphery. Okay. Now, you've moved to Tel Aviv, though, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was because of personal reasons, but I understand that it will be better for me to move here because all my jobs and the political things that I now involved in, and it's much easier, I need to say, yes, to be very close to everything here.
And your parents came from where?
My parents came from Tunisia, but they live in Sfat. I was born in Sfat till the age 20.
Wow. So, and we're losing the Knesset member who was born in Sfat, Chilik Bar, from the Labor Party, who is not running for re-election and is very proud of his background from there.
I'm very proud too, but I left my son. I have a son that is married and still live in Karmiel. My parents still live in Sfat, and I connect deeply to the north. I also still teach in Haifa University, and we'll see what happens.
So my last question, do you have any message you want to send to our listeners around the world? Of course, we have many listeners here who I'm sure you've persuaded many people to vote for Zehut among the listeners who live in Israel and are eligible to vote. But there are listeners to this show, Jews and Christians all around the world that listen to the Land of Israel network. What is your message and Zehut's message to them?
Wow, I didn't thought about this question, but I can say that I'm sure that everyone that listens to you and your program are connected to Israel. I'm sure that they are deeply concerned about Israel, about us, and I want them to continue, and I want this connection will be much stronger. I invite everyone to come to Israel.
Wonderful. Ronit Dror, thank you for coming here on Inside Israel today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.
Thank you, Gil.
That was Ronit Dror, a fascinating candidate, continuing our Meet the Candidate series here on Inside Israel Today, where we have been interviewing candidates from across the political spectrum. We still have 3 weeks before the election to introduce you to more candidates that will broaden your horizons and really celebrate the wide variety that we have here in Israeli democracy. One thing that could end up deciding this election is that 3.25% electoral threshold. I didn't ask her about it because nothing she can really do about it. But that could end up making the difference because there are recent polls that show that there are 6 different parties who are teetering around that electoral threshold. Not only the Zehut party, also Yisrael Beitenu and Gesher, who we've interviewed people from those parties the last couple of weeks here on Inside Israel Today. Naftali Bennett, his New Right party, is teetering on the threshold and could end up with Carolyn Glick, who's 6th on the list, not entering the Knesset. There's an Arab party called United Arab List / Balad that was just permitted by the Supreme Court to run yesterday, but might not get enough votes to cross the electoral threshold, which might not make too many of the show hosts here on the Land of Israel Network too upset. But really, anything can happen. Moshe Kachlon, his Kulanu party, that was the second largest party in the governing coalition of Netanyahu, that might end up outside the next Knesset as well. That is what makes Israeli politics so dramatic and so exciting, that we have an election that's really coming down to the wire, and who knows what the big issues are going to be. Just over the past week, we've had the focus change between terrible terrorist attacks and rockets that we thought were fired on purpose to Tel Aviv, and to a telephone that had been hacked by Iran, to political corruption. Over the last week, whatever the agenda is, might end up deciding how people vote to here and there. If the focus will be on some big security problem that will help certain parties, if the focus will be some socioeconomic problem that will help certain parties, if the focus will be matters of religion and state, that will help certain parties, and if the election will end up being about corruption at the very end, and then that can have no impact whatsoever for all we know, because right now, even though people are aware of the charges hanging over the head of Netanyahu, those charges do not seem to have impacted how people intend to vote in the April 9th election. So stay tuned to next week, when we will be meeting more interesting candidates and talking about what's going on behind the scenes inside Israel today. Thank you from Jerusalem. Bye-bye.
This is Eve Harrow for the Land of Israel Network. You can start every week with me, hearing views and interviews with fascinating people, some well-known, others homegrown, about places I guide, ideas I have to get you thinking too. It's about the land. It's about my people. It's about our collective journey. Rejuvenation with Eve Harrow, Sundays on the Land of Israel Network. Listen in.